listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole.
I'm not hearing you.
You're not hearing me?
Uh-uh.
Oh, I can hear me. Can you turn up the headphones a little bit? We'll start over again. Take two.
It's still a good afternoon, eh?
Yeah. There we go. Okay, so now we have no music.
It's better.
Oh, I guess it was supposed to. Oh, it's a little better. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, this is your cue, Verizon.
Yeah, what's up, Verizon? So anyway, good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, October 19th, year of our Lord 2017, and you're listening to a Gen Pop Media production. We're going to play the quotes game today, try and get that sucker done. We're in the final round, so it's just down to me and Dave, it looks like, for all intents and purposes. But basically, I just want to start with a disclaimer that the whole idea behind this show is just to get you to question the things that are going on around you, because a lot of things are really not what they seem. Some things are what they seem, like that bottle opener. But I got a video of that bottle opener up. But a lot of things aren't, and we're not saying we have all the answers. A lot of times we're just asking questions of each other. But really the purpose behind this show is twofold. It is to give glory to our Lord and Maker, Jesus Christ, and it is to just get you to question the company line, because you've seen them caught in so many lies, man. And if you caught them in that many, can you imagine how many they're really telling? That's all I'm saying, because there are no more secrets.
So many, we will never have
Only
enough shows
ignorance.
to cover it all. In fact, I think we're on like number 98.
Is this 98?
And I think my sister's listening. We almost got her to go.
Oh, she
and
totally
there was a
come.
5-minute window where I messed up, and I gave her the chance to wiggle out.
Yeah, never give them wiggle room,
And
dude.
she would like this game. She likes trivia.
Does she have a phone?
And she's
she
pretty
could
good
call
at it.
in.
Could always give her the number.
Yeah.
We could have the first caller
This
we've
is
had
my
in like
sister.
18
Okay,
months.
this is like, she's like me. But we can try it. 313-879-5059.
And that's up for anybody. Anybody wants to just
anyone
call
wants
in
to
and
call.
chat. And you can
That's not true. I actually wouldn't want a bunch of callers.
play.
It's fine. We
they
don't have to
they could
answer the
each
phone.
Oh my
follow,
God, the phones are, the board's lighting up. Don't answer
Yeah,
anything.
it'd be kind of nice to know somebody's at least listening to the show.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we're playing the quotes game. We are, who's keeping score here, by the way? It's not going to be me, so one of you two guys.
Oh, right now you mean.
Well, we would need paper and a pen.
Oh, I can.
There's a
Okay.
pen.
All right, well, you figure out how to
Yeah.
keep score. He's
We have-
halfway there.
We have these awesome things called iPhones.
Yes.
Oh, and
Maybe there's an app for scorekeeping.
we've got a slogan for the book now
Oh, what is the slogan for the book this week?
this week. And this one's stuck around more than a week, and I actually put it on paper, and it's been a few days. I haven't.
How many words are in the sentence?
It's a fragment. It's not a full sentence.
Okay. I like it already.
So it's the 401 book, and then
Uh-huh.
the tagline or the subtitle, whatever it's called, would be "Finding God by Finding the Devil in the Details."
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, they'll need a few cocktails before they like that one.
We'll need a few cocktails. Period.
Okay, well
Yeah.
then don't lose. All right, let's get started. We're going to be in a chapter called Cryptic, Strange, and Startling Puzzle Pieces.
Okay.
So there's a number of little metaphors that begin at the beginning of the book that travel throughout.
Okay.
And one of them is, we're looking at a giant jigsaw puzzle here. Don't expect to pick up one piece and suddenly have a picture of it. Nor do you need every single piece of a puzzle to know.
Right.
You get a 1,000-piece puzzle in front of you, and let's say there's no picture to the box, because that's really what we're tackling here. Except it's maybe a 10,000-piece puzzle. Gets dumped out before you, and you start with that first piece. You're staring at it. You don't even know what it's a picture of yet. It's very difficult to find something connected to it. But there is something connected to it. You find it. Eventually you find some corner pieces, and you can probably do, 50% of the puzzle
Yeah.
And around there,
Yeah,
you can
something
start
like that.
you can start
Yeah.
backing away from this thing, and you see what the picture is. You might not have all the details, but you see what the picture is. So this show, and it's probably a good thing that it's a long-running show because this takes a while to figure. It's nothing you're going to get in a night. The most you might get in a night is that initial jolt, that shock where your jaw's on the ground, like you just discovered something that you now have seen with your own eyes, and there's something eating at you. That might happen the first night. You're on your way. But it takes a while to see it all. And there's other ways. This is not about getting to heaven, because there's only one way to heaven, and that is through Jesus Christ. This is about finding Jesus Christ.
Right.
There are many ways to find Jesus.
Right.
Some people find him through faith. Some people find him because they were healed at the last second. We've got some friends that's...
Yep.
And some people find him because they literally find the devil on earth.
Yeah, that was my story.
That was absolutely my story. So,
and, a lot of people use, you find, we've talked about this before, but you find a lot of these hardcore scientists will set out to prove that there is no God and find him while they're trying to prove it. Some people, again, it needs to come, it comes from so many different ways, and it doesn't matter how it comes, just that it comes.
That is one thing this book has 1,800 quotes. It's about 1,000 plus different authors. I cannot tell you how many people that took their career, took their field of study to the nth degree and ended up finding God that way. We're talking philosophers, scientists, astronomers, biologists, even an architect. I know someone that this happened to, where they followed the 9/11 thing, figured out, holy cow, there's something going on here. They could, very similar story to mine. It is something that I was surprised how many guys end up seeing it, but we just never, even famous guys, like Leo Tolstoy was one. We've all heard the name.
Yeah.
I think he wrote War and Peace, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe.
He found Jesus Christ at the age of about 50. And it's here's a guy, I never would have read him. I just would have known his name. But this book got me to actually read a bunch of his stuff. And I so identify with his story, even though he's from Russia and he's in a different generation.
Yeah.
But he's like, I finally figured this out, that Jesus really was the Son of God. He was the Messiah. And it blew him away. And he later wrote about, and these books didn't get as much fanfare, but he later wrote about how everything that he used to love, he now hates. Everything that he thought was good was actually bad, and everything. Do you know what I mean? Like that, because I've gone through that. I'm sure you guys are going through this too, where suddenly you look at the world differently, and all the things you thought were good about it, you see the problems in it, and the things that are, in a lot of ways, knocked down socially. They're actually, what's black is white, and what is white is black. Whatever. All right. Let's jump into this thing.
Okay.
Cryptic, strange, and startling puzzle pieces. So this is from a chapter where, at this point in the book, because it's chronological, it's part guidebook, part roadmap, part history book, part diary. Certainly it's a quotes book. And we now know 9/11 was absolutely a false flag.
Absolutely.
Done by, I'm saying at this point in the story, so this would have been about April, May of 2011. And I finally started indulging, because when you're doing searches for like the truth about 9/11, you're doing them, let's say, on YouTube, you get all those other videos that pop up in the suggestion list, up next. And not all of them about 9/11. Some of them about seemingly crazy other stuff. Mm-hmm. I started looking into those things and was finding the strangeness going on, just like I was finding in 9/11. And I actually had, for a while, I literally had to wonder if I was going insane. Like, was I seeing things that, am I making something out of nothing? Is that what I did with 9/11? Because all these other conspiracies I'm looking into, all of a sudden, they seem to have teeth. Actually, I wondered that for a while. But I was crazy before this started,
Well.
so...
That hasn't changed.
Yeah, and we often wonder that about you.
All right. First quote. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Bring it.
The Rockefeller file is not fiction. It is a compact, powerful, and frightening presentation of what may be the most important story of our lifetime, the drive of the Rockefellers and their allies to create a one-world government, combining supercapitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Did we have this one last week?
I don't know.
Okay.
We weren't here last week.
Yeah.
I mean, last time. Okay, you ready for your choices?
Yep.
They are newsman Bill Moyers, FBI whistleblower Ted Gunderson, Congressman Larry McDonald, our buddy that got killed on KAL 007,
Right, in the plane.
and Laura Eisenhower, the great-granddaughter of Ike.
If I get it right, then we might have had it last time.
Okay.
I'm going to say Laura Eisenhower.
Okay. David?
It's also going to be my guess. And it's totally a guess because I don't really know.
This one was Larry McDonald.
Oh, so we're both wrong.
He said this in
My
1976.
first choice. You know.
I was going to say it. No.
Larry McDonald, while a U.S. congressman, wrote this in his introduction to Gary Allen's book. So this guy named Gary Allen wrote a book called The Rockefeller File in 1976. So Congressman McDonald writes the introduction for it, and he goes on to say this. Enough books have been written about the Rockefellers to fill a library. I have read many of them, and to my knowledge, not one has dared reveal the most vital part of the Rockefeller story, that the Rockefellers and their allies have, for at least 50 years, this was in 1976, for at least 50 years, have been carefully following a plan to use their economic power to gain political control of first America and then the rest of the world. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. McDonald closes with, regarding Gary Allen's book, The Rockefeller File. In this book, you will learn why the Rockefellers follow the policies they do, what their goals are, where they intend to take America, and why it is essential they be stopped. McDonald was stopped first when traveling aboard KAL 007, which was shot down by Soviet fighters in 1983. In an April 2007 essay, Dr. Stanley Monteith wrote about the death of McDonald, wondering this: have you ever wondered why a Soviet official ordered an attack on a civilian airliner? I believe the plane was shot down because Congressman McDonald was exposing the alliance between communism and capitalism, and people were beginning to believe him. So we're not the only ones that think that there was something more to that.
Now, I was young when that would have
Yeah.
happened. And, well, we all were. You guys are older than me, so maybe you remember. Was there any big fallout from that?
No. Just, it was all about Russia.
No, what
Yeah,
I mean
it
is,
was
like,
all-
so Russian fighter jets shoot down a U.S. airliner. Is that right?
No, it was a Korean airline.
Okay, Korean airliner.
That had supposedly wandered into their
Into
airspace,
Russian airspace.
Which
yeah.
is obviously not.
which is an incredibly
Happening, but-
massive response to.
But in '83, Korea was an ally of the U.S. under defense treaty, I think. Did we do anything about that? Did the U.S. have any? Was there any? Or was it just like a oops, sorry?
Good question. I mean, I don't remember the mainstream media making a thing of it. Obviously, the people involved would have a different perspective, but I don't know offhand.
Strange.
Airliners get shot down. Like, we shot down an Iranian
Yeah.
airliner They go down a lot. Pablo Escobar took down an Avianca airliner just to kill one guy. He killed 110 people, supposedly.
Yeah. Anyway.
Pretty evil. All right. Next quote from the same chapter, Cryptic, Strange, and Startling Puzzle Pieces. If all the bank loans were paid, no one would have a bank deposit, and there would not be a dollar of coin or currency in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit. If the banks create ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. Okay. So this was either Robert Hemphill, who was a Federal Reserve credit manager in Atlanta, Alan Greenspan, the head of the Federal Reserve. Hemphill, by the way, was in the 1930s. Greenspan was in the more so the 90s. Or it was Charles August Lindbergh, or it was Ben Bernanke. If all the bank loans were paid,
choices.
no one would have a bank deposit, and there would be not a dollar of coin or currency left in circulation, which is what we talked about on that show.
Yeah.
By the end of that first year in 1913, the gig was up. We would already never have enough
I'm going to
money.
say Hemphill.
All right. I'm going to say Lindbergh.
Good job with Hemphill, Howard.
Wow.
It was Robert Hemphill.
Howard with Uno.
My
All right.
only comment on that one was think about this one. All right, moving on. So Cryptic, Strange, we've got one more out of this chapter. These are a little bit all over the place because these were like the first, I'm seeing these serious people, reputable people in their fields
Right.
saying these incredible things that it's like looking at a puzzle piece and knowing how it fits into this puzzle before it's like the second when
Yeah.
right now you're viewing them all. Like all these puzzle pieces it's just a puzzle piece. Later, we'd end up placing it. Here it is. When I first heard of people who reported being taken by humanoid beings into spacecraft, my initial reaction was that they must be suffering from some kind of delusion. But when I began to meet with these individuals, I have now spoken with literally hundreds. I was quickly impressed with the fact that they were discriminating individuals largely of sound mind who were as inclined to doubt their experiences as I was. Okay. This was either J. Allen Hynek, famous UFO researcher in the 60s, maybe the 70s, Ronald Reagan, Jacques Vallée, the guy from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or Dr. John Mack from Harvard. He's the famous Harvard professor, psychiatrist, psychologist that investigated this stuff.
I'm going to go Valet.
Yeah, that's my guess, too.
It was Dr. John Mack.
Ah.
So this Harvard professor has these people, it's always off the record, and they're saying, John, you got to look at this. I mean, these people are saying that they're all saying the same story. You know, I've called my 12 therapy buddies across the country. They don't want attention. They don't have a book to sell. They have this exact same experience. And a lot of other little strange things like the name Jesus Christ repels these out-of-body experiences or whatever they are. Puzzle piece. The commentary in the book. So this was a Harvard professor, legitimate guy, goes into it with the same attitude like this is all BS. I'm going to find a hole in this real fast. Ends up changing his life because he ends up believing these people. Here's a guy in psychology, took it to the nth degree, ended up finding God. The backstory on this reads, and in case after case, I've been impressed with the consistency of the story, the sincerity with which people tell their stories, the power of feelings connected with this. This is him still talking. The self-doubt, all the appropriate responses that these people have to their experiences. But if we must find a theory within ourselves, then we should keep in mind that any theory that's going to even begin to address this has taken into account 5 factors. Number 1, again, this is John Mack talking, the extreme consistency of the stories from person after person, which you would not get simply by stimulating the temporal lobes. You would get any variable idiosyncratic responses that would differ a great deal from person to person. Number 2, you would have to deal with the fact that there is no ordinary experiential basis for this. In other words, there's nothing in their life experience that could have given rise to this other than what they say. In other words, there's no mental condition that could explain it. Third factor, you have to account for the physical aspects, the cuts and the other lesions on their bodies, which do not follow any psychodynamic distribution, like the stigmata associated with the identification with the agony of Christ. Interesting, he's mentioning Christ now already in his work. Even Harvard psychology professors, and maybe even more so, they're afraid to mention the name Jesus too, especially in their circles, because they're about to get ostracized from their group of friends.
Yeah, maybe even lose their job.
Very possibly.
You know.
So I love when credible people take that, they have the guts to do it. Like, I think I would wonder what would happen if Trump ever just did that, just got on the news and said, guys, we have got to get good with Jesus or this thing's going down the can.
Oh, people would freak out.
I know. It'd be kind of fun to watch.
And I can tell you a real life story that relates to this, proving what Dave says. I have an aunt who was a dean at Johns Hopkins.
Okay.
And I have another aunt who ran the biology department at Henry Ford. My aunt, who was the dean, is the prototypical college professor. My aunt, who ran the biology department, she does her job. She's very educated, one of the smartest people I know. Strong faith, strong woman of faith, okay? She's got a lot of faith. She believes she gets it, okay? When something happened in the professor aunt's life, my other aunt just told her nicely, well, I'm going to pray for you. I'll continue praying for you and your family. They got in an argument and have not talked in 15 years.
Oh, well, that was worth it.
But Jesus came to divide.
And my other aunt, the Christian aunt, has sent cards, letters, everything, stonewalled, shut off.
Yeah. People's reactions like that used to bother me, like take it personally. Yeah. I almost kind of chuckle to myself now when that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, it's just ludicrous.
It's just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Over that.
Yeah, see, I was never that, me personally, I was never that anti. Because I was always looking for my answers, so I may not have agreed with what somebody believed, but I believe in their right to believe it. And I mean, what's the harm? I mean, someone's praying for you. That's their way of saying.
I didn't write off family because...
Yeah, writing off family.
Yeah. No, I certainly never did that. Yeah. So. Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's an experience.
15
it's a
years.
Personal experience. It's been over 15 years.
Because she said she's going to pray for her.
Yeah, it was right after... Well, it's been 15 years because it was right after my mother died.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So, John Mack, to finish, the 5... factors that he said you have to address if you're going to come up with a theory, because he finds this with all of these different patients of his. We'd gone through 3. The 4th one was the tight association with UFOs, which are often observed in the community by the media, independent of the person having the abduction experience, who may not have even seen a UFO at all, but reads or sees on television the next day that a UFO passed near where they were when they had this experience. And finally, the 5th factor is the phenomenon occurs in children as young as 2, 2.5, 3 years old. And any theory that simply attributes this to the activity of the brain does not take into account at least 3 of those 5 fundamental dimensions. He's basically saying that there's something actual supernatural going on here. It's really happening. It's not a mental disease. And he's trying to do it in scientific terms. Be interesting to read how he writes later in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he must have come up with some sort of conclusion at some point.
Okay. The next chapter in the book is called An Actual Conspiracy. Or An Actual Conspiracy, really. That chapter name may change, but the quotes won't. Here's the quote. You ready?
Yep.
And these factors have clearly shown that a conspiracy was actually formed for the extinction of Christianity and the abolition of government and social order by a set of men whose names demand the execration of mankind. It was either Henry Kett, an English researcher and clergyman, J.C. Ryle, Dr. Carroll Quigley, Clinton's mentor, or Abraham Lincoln. And these facts have clearly shown that a conspiracy was actually formed for the extinction of Christianity and the abolition of government and social order by a set of men whose names demand the execration of mankind. What does execration mean, by the way?
I don't have a clue.
Well, I know what an excretion is.
That's just me.
I'm going to say Lincoln
That was exactly my guess.
because of the word execration.
Yeah, just the language. No. How do you spell that?
I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, okay.
The act of cursing or denouncing.
Oh. Okay.
I guess to desecrate.
Got it.
Ryle, Kett, Quigley, Lincoln.
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Yeah, I guess Lincoln also.
Is Henry Kett, 1800s,
It's 1-0, man.
Oxford-educated fellow, rose to serve the King of England as one of His Majesty's preachers at Whitehall. His little-known book is astounding in the claim that the same Illuminati we know today are the same ones he was referencing in this quote from over 200 years ago, who would be behind a coming worldwide conspiracy. Quite prophetic for 1800, until you read further and realize he's claiming Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati is one of the beasts of Revelation, in reference to the warnings Jesus Christ gave to John the Revelator around 90 AD. This conclusion, after much research on his part, can be found in Kett's 1800 book. And if you guys want to get that book, it is called History, the Interpreter of Prophecy, or A View of Scriptural Prophecies and Their Accomplishments in the Past and Present Occurrences of the World. He needs a new title writer. Anyway, that's from 1800. You can follow this thing. It's as old as the devil, literally. Yeah. It's older than people. All right, no points on that one for you guys?
No.
Are we ready for the next one?
1-0. Howard's got me.
All right, next quote. There does exist and has existed for a generation an international network which operates to some extent in the way the radical right believes the communists act. In fact, this network, which we may identify as the Round Table groups, has no aversion to cooperating with the communists or any other groups, and frequently does so. I know of the operations of this network because I have studied it for 20 years, and I was permitted for 2 years in the early 1960s to examine its papers and secret records. I have no aversion to it or to most of its aims, and have, for much of my life, been close to it and to many of its instruments. I have objected, both in the past and recently, to a few of its policies, notably to its belief that England was an Atlantic rather than a European power, and must be allied or even federated with the United States and must remain isolated from Europe. But in general, my chief difference of opinion is that it wishes to remain unknown. And I believe its role in history is significant enough to be known. So this was either John D. Rockefeller, Katharine Graham, the owner of the Washington Post, Carroll Quigley, Clinton's mentor, or Henry Kissinger.
Graham.
I have no idea.
Drink those Red Bulls, people.
Yeah. can't keep guessing the same thing as you. I guess I can.
You can.
Yeah, you'll never be more than a
I'll
point
say
behind.
Whatever. I'll say Kissinger. I have no clue.
It was Carroll Quigley, and that was out of his famous book called Tragedy and Hope. He makes several references to the Illuminati and how just bluntly real they are. He's a fan of them, and he thinks that they should be out getting accolades for what they do.
Oh.
But he might not understand that Satan's ultimately the one that's several levels back, and he doesn't want to be revealed yet.
So this guy's a sympathizer. He's a fan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a professor at Georgetown. Like I said, he mentored President Bill Clinton. He's a serious man. He's a serious intellectual on the American scene. Another guy telling us exactly what's going on. And who is it, by the way, that you guys are listening to that tells you there's nothing going on? Who are you listening to? Because I've got 1,800 people here that are going to disagree with Anderson Cooper.
Yeah.
Who spent more time getting his hair dyed just right today than he did verifying any of the news stories he's about to read you. Why do I pick on Anderson Cooper so much?
Yeah,
it's
you
easy.
got a real problem with Anderson Cooper.
It's easy.
Because I have a crush on him.
Oh,
Maybe.
there you go.
All right, next quote. Ready?
Yes.
What is important is to dwell upon the increasing evidence of the existence of a secret conspiracy throughout the world for the destruction of organized government and the letting loose of evil. This was either Woodrow Wilson, Frederick Dixon, who was the editor of the Christian Science Monitor in the 1920s, Pierre Salinger, or Walter Cronkite. What is important is to dwell upon the increasing evidence of the existence of a secret conspiracy throughout the world for the destruction of organized government and the letting loose of evil. Wilson, Dixon, Salinger, or Cronkite?
Salinger.
Who's the Christian Science Monitor guy?
Fred Dixon.
That's the one I pick.
It was Frederick Dixon.
Yes.
He was editor of the Christian Science Monitor.
All tied up.
He's the guy that made the comments on the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Because they got popular again in the 1920s. This quote was from 1920.
Wow.
Here again, just another puzzle piece. We're going to fill in the whole picture going back to the beginning of time. He was editor of the Christian Science Monitor from 1914 to 1922. It's understandable why this quote is so often attributed to Woodrow Wilson, and it is. Aside from echoing Wilson's warnings in his 1913 book, A New Freedom, there is an article about the current president in the same 1920 edition of the Christian Science Monitor on page 6. What? What am I reading here? What's fascinating is the matter-of-fact description and warning about Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati, witchcraft, and the occult, and the newly discovered document, The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. In Dixon's article, which would have been read globally, he describes the protocols, which lays out a step-by-step plan to take over the world as a matter of historical record. He noted how the plan was unfolding before his eyes, but that it might be a mistake to assign blame to the Jews. He seemed to be hinting at a much darker possibility. And if he can only see us now, 100 years later,
Yeah.
the gig is up at this point. And a lot of people get caught up on 9/11 is a Jewish conspiracy. It's the Jews. Yeah, it's Mossad. Yeah, they were involved. They didn't spearhead it. They didn't plan it. No, Jewish people are not secretly going to take over the world. The people that do want to, not so secret anymore, take over the world, they practice Jewish or Judaism outwardly.
They pretend.
They pretend to be Jewish, but
Right.
they actually worship Lucifer. And
Yeah.
Jesus in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 told us about these guys. They're called the synagogue of Satan. And they would be the financial power in the last days. And what do you know?
Well, what do you know?
Another incredible prediction from an ancient manuscript written over 2,000 years ago. Next quote. These are the ones where the chapter is, there's really a conspiracy. And yes, it seems that everyone is agreeing that, yes, there really is a conspiracy, even the conspirators. Anyhow, here's the quote. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, ... If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski, Alan Greenspan, or David Rockefeller?
David Rockefeller.
It is David Rockefeller.
It is. That one was kind of... Why did you guys know that one so easily? Have we done that one before?
No, because he said my family.
Because I gave it away?
Well, I've read that and heard that before, and I don't know why, but I knew it was him.
I'm reading these
Because we're smart, that's why.
Yeah. Because we're well-read. Why are you so shocked?
Yeah, we're smart.
I don't even remember what I wrote in some of these backstories. That was from his memoir, a book called Memoirs. It's the only autobiography by any Rockefeller. I don't know where I got that fact, but Rockefeller met Henry Kissinger in 1954 when Kissinger was appointed a director of a Seminole Council on Foreign Relations, a study group on nuclear weapons, of which David Rockefeller was a member. He named Kissinger to the board of trustees of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and consulted with him frequently with the subjects, including the Chase Bank's interest in Chile and yada, 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 yada. But that was David Rockefeller in a public book document. It's not a secret. He is actually telling you, I am doing this.
Yeah.
But their opinion now is there, and it's clear to see once you put the whole puzzle together. It doesn't matter if we know.
At this point,
Well, there's nothing we can do.
no. It's
They're
stick a fork in it, dude.
they're not even it's not a secret anymore.
They don't need to hide it anymore.
They don't.
Because what are you going to do about it exactly?
Right.
Next quote. This evil element has infiltrated virtually every level of society. It's in the government. They've gone out of their way, of course, to infiltrate the city, county, state, and the federal government. It is in the banking system, in the courts. It's in the prosecutors, the attorneys, the doctors. It's mind-boggling. It's unbelievable. This was CIA agent Chip Tatum, J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, Jim Garrison, who prosecuted Clay Shaw in the JFK trial, or Ted Gunderson, the former L.A. bureau chief in charge of 700 agents for the FBI in Los Angeles.
Ted Gunderson.
Oh, God, that's good choices.
What's scary is that any one of those four guys
Yeah.
who said it.
You said Gunderson?
Mm-hmm.
I'll say Tatum.
It was Howard. Howard got it right.
Jerk.
He was the FBI special
You could've
agent in
taken
charge of the
Gunderson.
LA
We could've
office.
stayed tied.
He was on a short list to be director of the FBI, and I don't remember. I guess this would have been under Bush 1, give or take, maybe prior. One of the questions. You guys ever get this? If 9/11 was an inside job, were all the whistleblowers? You guys ever get this one?
Constantly, yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many whistleblowers. This,
This society's so programmed, you can blow the whistle and they still won't believe you.
yeah.
Well, you just get instantly, labeled. Here's another.
I mean, I'm sure that book sold a couple million copies, probably. David Rockefeller's book. He comes right out and says it. Illuminati's not real.
Well, who was it that?
But it's because they won't read a book. I mean, they're
Who's
not going to
the-
read the Bible. They're not going to read in
Why read
Rockefeller's
that?
book either.
Well, they might read it, but they're like,
No, they won't read it. They'll just tell you that, it's not true. Well, I mean, it says it right here.
Yeah,
I
who
mean,
was it that,
it's the same excuse
You're
for
taking
not
that out
reading
of
the Bible.
context. Yeah.
Who's the
Yeah,
UN?
you're taking it out of
Was
context.
it the UN guy that wrote he pretty much just came out and said he praises Lucifer. Who was that?
There's a few of them.
There's a UN guy.
Davis Spangler.
Spangler, that's it.
He's one of them.
Now you present that to somebody, and they're like, whatever. Like, no, not whatever.
Yeah,
he really wrote it.
There's a lot of debate over that quote because a lot of debunking sites say that he never said it, but I actually found where he said it in its original form. He did say it. I'm not going to find it.
Did you find it in a public record?
I found it online. I mean, it sounded like it was a private book. I mean, it was... We are connected right now to every library that's ever existed in human history. Yet, most of us are going to go home tonight to watch... Well, actually, I am going to go home and watch football tonight. But you get the point. It's all right to do that, but you just know your surroundings a little bit. You've got a few clicks away. Any question you have, it's almost like asking God in a lot of ways. The truth of anything is just a few clicks away. What do I want this little magic genie to do?
People don't want the truth.
They don't.
Well, it's on the internet, so
yeah, they don't.
Of course,
want
it's
the
true.
Truth.
They even make commercials.
Oh yeah,
those?
no, I hear it.
Yeah,
I get it all the
so
time.
Funny.
They've got us
It's
programmed
not all
with
true.
that.
There's a lot of nonsense on there too, but
it's
That's
so
true.
brilliant because that was an Allstate commercial.
yeah,
And they get... what do you remember about that ad?
just that.
There's a bad dating service went bad
French
because
guy.
it went through
Yep.
the internet.
Yeah, those are funny too.
And
hilarious!
this is how subliminal programming works. That's just an ad that probably we've all seen that ad many times,
Yeah.
yes?
enough. Yeah.
Okay. That one ad provides 10, 20, 30 impressions where we're hearing someone make fun of people that get information from the internet.
Right.
Now, we don't realize that, but it's in there. And believe me, that is dovetailed with many other very similar type of comments. And you actually have, to the point where I've actually had people argue, well, you got that on the internet? It's like saying, they're discrediting it because I got it on the internet.
Yeah.
I'm just like, you realize what you're saying is, I've just gotten it out of the biggest library in world history. But you're going to throw all that out because of a gum wrapper you found in the corner?
Right.
Really?
Look at
smart.
the
'Cause it's on the internet,
the weak
right?
excuses for dismissing the Bible. It's the same thing.
Well, I look up things on the internet all the time, like equations and calculations,
Yeah.
and those are all correct.
And what execration means.
Yeah.
And what that means. Yeah.
Where are all the whistleblowers? Here's another. So this is Ted Gunderson after a 28-year career in the FBI. Gunderson continued his investigation of the proliferation of Satanism, and this is in quotes, and the Illuminati's golden plan, as he put it. In answering a question about the Illuminati and Satanism, he answered with these words during an audience panel in Santa Clara, California. It was in May of 2002. You can find the video. It's called Ted Gunderson's Satanism in the USA. High-level FBI guy. Not the only high-level FBI guy, but another one.
What would be the common consensus about that guy?
Ted Gunderson?
Yeah, it's once he started coming out saying this stuff, would be the you see where they just broad brushstroke somebody, like he went nuts or he lost his mind or he's
So he immediately attracted the attention of, these are two people that I am 99.9% certain are COINTELPRO agents. A guy named Stu Webb and another girl named Barbara Hartwell. And what they basically do, I mean, this is how this and most of your tax dollars that go towards intelligence, it doesn't go to protect our country. It goes to protect the bankers from us.
Right.
So the COINTELPRO, these Stu Webb comes out and Barbara Hartwell all of a sudden come out and they're saying Ted Gunderson is real. Like he's the man. He is, they get the people that like Ted Gunderson on their side. They get brought into the team. And then these two, the Stu Webb and the Barbara, will either start fighting with each other or with Ted Gunderson. They'll bring up something new like, oh my God, I just found out Ted Gunderson is actually an embedded agent for the Illuminati, and he's spreading false information about XYZ. And then Stu Webb will be there to argue it at first, but then to be overcome with facts by all in this staged debate. If you don't dig deep enough to get past that early filter. You'll never understand how this works, but there are a lot of people employed by this government that have even security clearances that are online doing this all day long, causing problems for people that are trying to get the truth out. So, yeah, you're going to attract them.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Next quote. There is a sinister network of subversive agents, godless intellectual parasites working in our country today whose ramifications grow more extensive, more successful, and more alarming each new year, and whose true objective is to demoralize, paralyze, and destroy our great republic from within if they can, according to their plan for their own possession. This was radio show host Michael Rivero. He runs a similar show to what we do, but he's been doing it for a while. Dr. Emmanuel Bronner from Bronner Soap, Myron Fagan, or Abraham Lincoln.
Go ahead, go first, DiBiase.
Fagan.
Myron Fagan.
That's who you guys say?
Yeah.
Now, Fagan certainly said stuff like that.
But it wasn't him.
It was actually Bronner, Dr. Bronner, like Dr. Bronner's hand soap. You familiar?
What?
Why would he say this?
I don't know.
Well, here's a guy that took his career to the nth degree. And so what did he do? He was one of the guys that realized there was a problem with fluoride getting into our water in the late 1940s, early 1950s. He starts doing his own fluoride research. He's got assets. He's known. He's a name. Like, this is like, the guy from Dyson. People know him in the day. And he realizes that this is a remnant Nazi plan to dumb down the population. This is not an accident that this is being put into our water. He figures out who's behind it. He ends up finding the conspiracy. He ends up finding God. Running a soap business because something in his industry about chemicals and water and keeping things clean, he'd ask questions. He just asked why, until he got to the end of it. So it's not just these insiders and government political types. That's a business guy who, believe me, has better things to do than to be...
Yeah, it's already pretty well loaded, right? So
why bring problems like this on you if it is not the truth?
That's interesting.
He's doing it to make money. He's got a book to sell.
Something tells me that
it is not
had
worth
the opposite effect.
It's not worth giving up.
Yeah,
because you're going to lose some friends when you start saying stuff like that. Some people just can't handle hearing it. They just cannot.
Well, you're just another, tinfoil hat whack job.
That's on the outside what is going on, but a psychiatrist underneath would say there's a internal war raging in some guy's head, and it's the cognitive dissonance where they literally cannot. Their world will crumble if their worldview is flawed. And if you're presenting something that will put a crack in that world, they can't even be around it. Of course, you're going to have to deal with that one way or another. All right, let's do one more. Oh, we got time before the break. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
I need to gain one here.
You down 2?
I'm down 1.
Okay. It would take volumes to quote all the evidence to prove that the international bankers organized, financed, and directed the Russian Revolution in order to obtain control of a vast territory so that the Illuminati could try out their ideas for totalitarianism. This was either William Guy Carr, who wrote a book called Pawns in the Game. He was the Canadian Royal Air Force officer. It was Fritz Springmeier, Jim Mars, or John McManus, the head of the John Birch Society. It would take volumes to quote all the evidence to prove that the international bankers organized, financed, and directed the Russian Revolution in order to obtain basically control of Russia for the Illuminati's purposes.
Jim Marr.
Fritz.
It was William Guy Carr.
God, we're terrible today. Horrible.
And I liked what Royal Air Force military guy. He writes Pawns in the Game. He's the one that came out with the Albert Pike letter. Because he had gotten it from a book. He's the one that brought it back into the attention of the world. And back in 1956, when Carr's book came out, he had been in discussions or something along these lines with the British Museum, where this Albert Pike letter was on display for many years, up until the 1920s. And there was a cardinal in the Vatican that actually wrote about this in 1926. So you can actually go see Albert Pike's letter in 1926, without a doubt. That's in print. Carr's claim is that the letter really goes back to 1871, and it was on display at the British Museum. But like giant bones at the Smithsonian, they get lost, and anything that could lead you to the Bible is never going to be shown to you. And so they try to discredit him because the British Museum came back and said, we never had this letter. Yeah, of course they're going to say that. That's what they always say. And but either way you slice it, the letter was in print in 1926, and it did say that the Illuminati was going to have a revolution in Russia because we got to kill the czars so we can take over that country. And this is where Albert Pike's letter comes in, so that we can have essentially after World War II. This was written in 1926, 20 years before World War II. So that after World War II, we can have a Cold War between Russia and the United States, which will lead to a conflict involving Islam and Israel. Now, this was written in 1926. There was no Israel yet.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So whether it was 1870 or not.
And the United States was not a superpower in 1926.
Oh, by 26 we were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, it doesn't make it any less sensational if it was in 1926 versus 1871.
Yeah.
Right? It's still...
The only difference is 1871 captures World War I.
Okay.
Because he said there will be 3 wars in this coming century. The first war is going to be about getting control of Russia, which they did. The second war would be about creating a balance between this Russian country and the United States. And the Third World War was going to basically be a war between Israel and Islam. But will be fought... Like the two guys in the corners of each of those will be Russia and the United States. The U.S. for Israel and Russia for the Muslim world.
Yeah, well.
Now, some people have actually said, that means that the Illuminati wrote the Bible to fool us, and this is actually their plan that's unfolding. No. See, Satan understands that when God says that Israel will be brought back in the last days, it's going to happen whether Satan's behind it or not. So Satan's probably going to get out in front of the boat and start rowing that thing,
right,
so that his followers are thinking this is his move, this is his call. Satan knows prophecy better than probably any human does.
Interesting.
Do you say we're close to a break, Chris?
Yeah, we got a minute.
Want to do one more? Couple of seconds. This one's too long for a couple of seconds. So did we find out who? Oh, yeah, William Guy Carr. All right, real quick one then. The Illuminati are thousands of different conspiracies operating in parallel. Was this William Guy Carr, Gerald Winrod, and if you Gerald Burton Winrod, who was a political activist, social activist in the 1930s? Fritz Springmeier or John Todd? The Illuminati are thousands of different conspiracies operating in parallel.
Who's Fritz Springmeier?
He wrote Illuminati Bloodlines. It was the most comprehensive.
Okay.
Goes into everything. Their history traces them back to the Romans, what they do behind the scenes. I mean,
I was all about Fritz until he brought John Todd in.
I know.
So
he's got
John
the good
Todd
choices. What's your guess?
John Todd.
I'm going to say Fritz.
Good job, Howard.
Gosh.
It was John Todd.
All right, man. You're smoking me.
He was also known as Christopher Collins, and if you look at the bloodline families, there is a Collins family. He certainly seemed to know one hell of a lot in 1972. In 1972, when Todd was saved and he started exposing the Illuminati, at that time he ruled a 13-state U.S. region consisting of 5,000 covens.
Wow.
So 5,000 covens in 13 states, and each coven's going to have multiple members, totaling 65,000 priests and priestesses.
Wow.
All right, you want to understand how darkness happens in this world?
And that's like teachers from the school.
This is just a sub.
That's, you know,
yes.
Probably some pastors in there. For sure.
There was this woman talking about how she left Illuminati generational family, and she was in a coven. She was basically a burgeoning witch, and she's all tatted up, totally down with Jesus Christ now, completely has flipped. And she's basically like, I just didn't know who to trust because they were sending me to these doctors, and they've got doctors in their pocket all over the place.
Yeah.
That was her talking about it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's, like I said, there's ministers in there, pastors,
Yep.
school teachers.
Were you talking about that many people in
your
13 states?
counselor.
Yeah.
Todd has provided many shocking revelations, which Fritz Springmeier confirms could only come from a man who was in fact a member of the Council of 13. Fritz Springmeier says the 13 Illuminati families consist of generational Satanists. So Fritz Springmeier, who's the expert on the Illuminati, when he heard John Todd speak, said, this guy's real.
He's the real deal. So, do we ever know whatever happened to John Todd?
3 theories, and while we're on break, I'll try and find them.
Okay.
But
because he ended up in prison, right?
Yes. We
Okay.
know he went to prison. Then the 3 stories are he got out and went into hiding. He was killed while in prison, and he was killed as soon as he got out of prison. But basically, no one's ever heard. He went into prison, and no one has ever heard from him again.
Very weird.
And
Yeah,
people
very
look for him
strange.
because he had a lot of important things to say.
Well, we are going to let Chris pay a few bills, and then we will be right back. Welcome back. We're taking a little sidebar from the quotes game for a second to play a new game called What the Heck Happened to John Todd? So Dave was going to fill us in on a couple ideas he had.
I didn't.
There's 3 theories, but no
Yeah.
one knows, right? Or unless you found something.
I thought Dave found something.
No, I don't think so.
It'd be in here. Do you want me to look it up? This could take a few minutes. And while I'm looking this one up, to close out something that ex-Illuminati witch was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
she was talking about how tattoo parlors, this was her thing that she knew about, how there's so many tattoo parlors that are actually run by guys that are part of the Illuminati. Probably they join some Freemasonic thing, they get their business, whatever. And that they literally pull, the blood that you shed there, they do some nasty stuff with it. And this girl is now completely converted, and she's like, and it just doesn't surprise me that God in the Bible said, do not get tattoos on yourself. And I always used to think he was a teetotaler God, like, really, you're no fun. But all of it was just for our own protection. Everything that's in there, really, at the end of the day, is for our own protection, except for...
Yeah, and you actually have to study pretty hard to extract the fact that tattoos are a no-no.
It's only written in 1 or 2 places. Like, it's in Leviticus, and I
Yeah.
want to say it's 1926
and
or
you have to
something like that.
really, I read it's like a 10-page thing done by Hebrew scholars where they, they're deciding on what these words actually mean, and it's anywhere from, branding to all different things, and the basic conclusion was that it can be as specific as taking a needle and using it to put ink under your skin. So then at that point, I'm like, okay, it's probably not the best thing to be doing.
All right, I'm going to look in one more place. If we have the John Todd story, I will share it with you.
What's funny is when I looked him up, so John Todd, parentheses, conspiracy theorist. on Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
I
It's
love
not
it.
like Wikipedia. It's not like the owners of Wikipedia, I think, are in, but it's obvious that the same intelligence agents that they have cruising the internet
It's just funny.
are focused on Wikipedia, because you can see it now. The way that they, but those claims were dismissed back in it. But no, they weren't dismissed. I'm not doing a good job of explaining.
It's just funny how they word stuff. Things are always in parentheses, and it's interesting. It says he died in 2007
There's 3 theories on his death.
in South Carolina.
John Todd in 1972. He was born to Satanic Illuminati bloodline family and later defected to Christianity and gave several speeches before he was ultimately imprisoned. He's thought to be dead. Todd says the Illuminati spend a lot of money bribing people, especially Christian evangelists and preachers. He says KISS, as in the band KISS, stands for Kings in Satan's Service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been
kinda
around
old.
forever.
But in 72, I don't know if that was common knowledge.
But it says here in 1988, he was convicted in South Carolina on rape charges, sentenced to 30 years in prison, which seems long, but I'm not saying it shouldn't be 30. It just seems like most rapists don't get 30 years. They get like 5.
First of all, just because you're convicted of rape is kind of meaningless, really. When you know, like, these guys, if you think they're just owning tattoo parlors, they also own all the forensic labs all over the world, period.
Yeah.
So
But it's
they
just
can make any
interesting.
case they
But
want.
it said he was released in 2004 and placed in a psychiatric facility where he died in 2007, according to Wikipedia.
There's another one where some helicopter picked him up from a prison.
Yeah, that's
and
actually from Fritz Springmeier. I just found that. I can read that. According to Fritz Springmeier, Johnny Todd won his appeal. The federal court of appeals came down hard on the state of Southern California. And in 1994, Todd called the author from prison to inform them that he was to be released, but that he needed tens of thousands of dollars. This author, and they're talking about Springmeier, was not able to come up with the thousands of dollars that Todd wanted immediately. Later, Springmeier was told that the Illuminati offered to let Todd live if he could come up with a large ransom. Reports to this author allege that the day that Todd was released from prison, he was picked up by a helicopter and killed. To the best of my knowledge, John Todd was killed the day he won his freedom. Obviously, the Illuminati does enforce the oaths and vows that their members are forced to make. The entire episode of the course, a sad one for this author.
For Fritz Springmeier.
Yeah.
So John Todd reaches out to him. It's weird that the Illuminati would give him an option to ransom his way out. That's not how. They don't need the money.
No, right.
And they want to shut him up. But that doesn't mean that they didn't say that to John Todd, and John Todd thought I think it was too smart to get swindled like that. All right, we are in an actual conspiracy. Now we're actually out of it now. There's one. Let's see. All over the world, here's a quote. All over the world, it is possible to trace the sinister workings of the program revealed in these documents, the protocols of the learned elders. It is an interesting diversion to be able to hold the protocols in one hand, the daily newspaper in the other, and see how often the latter reflects the evident subterranean activities of the former. If it is true that the proof of the pudding is in the eating, it is also true that the glaring fulfillment of the protocols is one of the chief arguments for their authenticity. Now, you don't know who this is yet. This was either William Guy Carr, Gerald Winrod, the Christian Scientist guy, Springmeier, or John Todd. All over the world, it is possible to trace the sinister workings of the program.
Springmeier.
Yeah, that's the old Fritz.
This was said in 1935
Windrod, right?
by Winrod. It can be seen if you look, this sinister conspiracy. Some people need to see it in order to save their own soul. I was one of those. Okay, next chapter, War of the Sheep. We ready for our next one?
Yes.
To parody the words of Winston Churchill, never have so many been manipulated so much by so few. This was either George Carlin, Myron Fagan, Sigmund Freud, or Aldous Huxley. To parody the words of Winston Churchill, never have so many been manipulated so much by so few. Do you know the words that the parody's referring to?
No, I don't.
There was, right after the start of World War II, one of the first big battles Britain had to face was the Battle of Britain, which was an air battle between the Luftwaffe, the Nazis' Air Force, the Luftwaffe, and the Royal Air Force, the RAF of Britain. And there are some stories that I think are more legendary than true, but at one point, like the war, Germany was on the verge of winning this war. And again, think of the parallels like with us in Vietnam. They're not allowed to win. They're never allowed to win the war. Something else was in the planning because the Luftwaffe under Hermann Göring are hitting all these RAF Air Force bases. And the rumor mill inside the British government is that England was on the verge of surrendering. Because at one point they only had 5 working aircraft going up against the whole Nazi machine. I mean, these planes were coming off of the assembly line, pilots waiting at the end of it, hops in, he's in combat in 10 minutes. I mean, that is how close they came. And it was through, quote unquote, an accident that a German bomber, all their bombers were mid-range bombers. They really had no long-range bombers, which is one of the reasons they lost. But this mid-range Henkel HE-111 kind of 2-engine bomber ends up dropping some bombs over London itself. And that's now, it's viewed as like this affront to the Brits. And then Britain comes back and bombs, and I don't know what the city was, but it was a German city. Now they're hitting not strategic targets anymore. Now they're just trying to incite terror in people, and they're bombing civilian targets. And then the Blitz happens, and that's where Hitler's like, what? They bombed my city? Send everything you have. I want the city of London flattened. So he starts going after this unstrategic target, London, as opposed to continuing to pound the Air Force bases. And that is what allowed the British to get their manufacturing mojo going so they could catch up, and they ultimately ended up repelling the Nazis. And at one point, all the British had was Winston Churchill at one point. And he'd have a few cocktails and he'd do his little radio speech. But he was talking about these RAF pilots, where he made a famous speech, never have so many in history owed so much to so few. And he was talking about the RAF pilots that defended Britain from the Nazis, because they ultimately... So that was a famous war speech. So someone parodied it. To parody the words of Winston Churchill, never have so many been manipulated so much by so few. George Carlin, Myron Fagan, Sigmund Freud, or Aldous Huxley.
Myron Fagan.
George Carlin.
It was Aldous Huxley. This is a
Could have
sad,
been George Carlin.
yet
He
truthful
loves him.
parody on Winston Churchill's famous ode to the RAF pilots, who he credited with saving England from the German Luftwaffe during the Battle of Britain. He said it August 20th, 1940.
I wouldn't have been George Carlin.
Churchill's quote is, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." Huxley, in leading up to the quip, set the scene. by saying, the power elite directly employs several millions of the country's working force in its factories, offices, and stores, controls many millions more by lending them the money to buy its products. And though its ownership of the media of mass communication, through its ownership of mass media, influences the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions of virtually everybody. That was Aldous Huxley in 1958. Another waypoint on our
Still
map.
down by 2.
Are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
This should be a layup for you guys. Men will believe anything unless it's written in the Bible.
I know this one.
Truman, Lincoln, Napoleon, or King James?
Truman.
Hmm.
Are you ready for this? Napoleon.
It is Napoleon.
Nice. Dave catches up one.
French military general emperor. The quote above is succinct and true, but there's some debate if Napoleon actually spoke or wrote these exact words. In J. Thanen Davidson's book of 1885, he writes, this is J. Thanen Davidson writing, remember there is far more revelation than against it. For every argument against Christianity, there are 100 in its favor. There are no men so credulous as infidels. As Napoleon once said of Duroc, these men will believe anything, provided it is not in the Bible. Regardless of the context, it's even more accurate if applied to modern-day society. So there was some debate whether Napoleon actually said it, and I never found that, but this was a reputable secondary source from 1885. That was one of the ones that snuck in. We ready for another one?
Yes.
This chapter is the War of the Sheep. That's what we've been in. And that's where I'm starting to realize, okay, there's about 1% of the population that's about to rain hell down on Earth. There's about 5% of the population that's aware of it. You got 94% in the middle. That's the sheep. The 1% that's trying to lead all the sheep off a cliff don't want any of the 94% of the sheep to listen to the 5% that know what they're talking about. We're in that 5%.
I think it's bigger than 5%.
You think so?
5% is a lot of people.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
I think even people that think they know what's going on don't really know what's going on.
Very true.
So
I've seen that in memes. I have no idea if the number's true, but I've often thought that's probably roughly what it is. Every time I look, though, the Illuminati it's a bigger operation than I thought previous.
it's almost the operation.
It's so. Woodrow Wilson in 1913 already said it was so pervasive, so interlocking, so complete that even the strongest men in the country don't even dare speak poorly about it. You know, talking about the Illuminati. That's where it was in 1913. That was 100 years ago. Do you think they just got weaker?
Right, yeah.
Do you think they just,
went,
guys, this world domination.
It's not
plan,
working out. Let's,
I
yeah.
got to buy
watch-
socks this
Let's
week.
watch people kneel down at football games.
Yeah. The issue, here's the quote, the issue which has swept down the centuries and which will have to be fought sooner or later is the people versus the banks. This was either Sir Alexander Cockburn, a jurist, i.e. a lawyer, politician, and Attorney General and Lord Chief Justice of England. It was also possibly Bertrand de Jouvenel. Do you guys know who that is?
No.
Do I know who that is? French philosopher and economist. He lived from 1903 to 1987. Ray Bilger, American journalist and a historian, born in 1948, went to Temple University. Or Nikita Khrushchev. The issue which has swept down the centuries and which will have to be fought sooner or later is the people versus the banks. Cockburn, Jovenel, Bilger, Khrushchev.
What do you say, Howard?
I'm leaning Khrushchev.
Is that your guess?
Khrushchev.
I'm going to say Cockburn.
Good job, Dave.
Lawyer speak.
Cockburn.
People versus the banks.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, good.
Kind of gave it away for me.
Good move.
I'll take it, man. We're even now.
Good job.
Backstory
Nice
on
catch-up.
this is online sources frequently attribute this quote to Sir John or Lord Dalberg Acton, but it was actually Sir Alexander James Edmund Cockburn,
Unfortunate last name.
the 12th
That's a lot
Baronet,
of names.
as the first Lord Chief Justice of England, who said it in 1875, and it's
Wow.
recorded in Hansard's New Zealand parliamentary debates. That's like their congressional record.
Yeah.
The Lord Chief Justice of England is the second highest judge of the courts of England and Wales, behind only the Lord Chancellor.
Talking about this stuff all around the world except for one place I can think of.
Current day United States?
China.
You don't think they're talking about it there?
Oh, no. They just named their dictator the new Mao. Xi is now their all-wise leader.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, this is a cultural issue. But don't worry. China's not up to anything. Next question.
China and Russia and the United States, we're all pawns to the Illuminati. I mean, they're on both sides of whoever we're talking about here.
Yeah. But there's... it's just interesting to see what's happening. They will probably soon invade Taiwan, I'm sure. By 2020, they're in there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They're getting the old motherland back together, dude. Same thing Russia's up to.
Getting the band
It's
back
going
together.
down.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, this one's not multiple choice. Just give me the Bible passage. You
Ooh.
you should know
Book
this
of
one.
Isaiah.
You ready?
Okay.
I want a book and a number.
Dang.
Oh, come on.
How about this?
How about a book?
3
Wow.
points if you can give me the exact book and number.
Okay.
1 point if you can tell me anything about it.
Okay. All right,
here's
that's fair.
here's the quote out of the Bible. Like I said, you guys should know this one. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. One point for tell me what book that's in.
Ephesians
yeah.
4.
Ooh. It's Ephesians, but I think it's
It's 6, isn't it?
5:11? 5?
Ooh, yeah.
Ephesians
Wow.
5:11.
Ephesians 5:11. Minister Dave.
So that means I get what?
You get
Three?
3 points.
I get 1.
Dang. Do you get one?
Yeah.
So there's charity involved?
I got
Got it.
Ephesians.
Just kidding, dude.
Jeez.
I could just erase your 1 and put down 2 for me.
Okay, Cat.
But it's the same, right?
We got 30 minutes to figure out the winner here. That last question was from a chapter called Entering the Fight. This is now chapter 17. Chapter 16 was the War of the Sheep. So observe that there's this spiritual war going on, and these are now quotes related to actually getting into it, like, you know, getting involved in the conflict, whatever you want to call it. Entering the fight. So Ephesians 5:11, that's the backbone of this show. Next quote. You assist an administration most effectively by obeying its orders and decrees. An evil system never deserves such allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking of the evil. A good man will resist an evil system with his or her whole soul. This was either Joseph Goebbels, Adolf Hitler, Gandhi, or Malcolm X.
Man, you got good choices.
Read the quote again.
You assist an administration most effectively by obeying its orders and decrees. An evil system never deserves such allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking of the evil. A good man will resist an evil system with his or her whole soul.
Going with Malcolm X.
Malcolm X.
It was Gandhi.
What? I thought Gandhi was a one-liner guy. I know, I'm just kidding.
He actually was pro Jesus Christ, which really surprised me. He's the one that said that the most perfect sacrifice ever was...
Yeah.
He was born and raised in a Hindu merchant caste family in coastal Gujarat, western India. Trained in law at the Inner Temple in London, Gandhi first employed nonviolent civil disobedience as an expatriate lawyer in South Africa in the resident Indian community struggle for civil rights. After his return to India in 1915, he set about organizing peasants, farmers, and urban laborers to protest against excessive land tax and discrimination. Now, who's behind all taxing?
Yeah.
The central banks, the
Right.
Federal Reserve, the IRS, the Illuminati. And it's funny that you take finance or banking or tax to the nth degree, you'll figure it out. Assuming leadership of the Indian National Congress in 1921, Gandhi led nationwide campaigns for various social causes and for achieving Swaraj, or self-rule. Gandhi coined the term Satyagraha. Have you guys ever heard that?
I have heard that.
He coined it to describe his form of nonviolent resistance
Yeah,
through
that's right.
holding on to truth. This comes from one of his posthumously published works named Nonviolent Resistance, which echoed his strategy of gaining independence from the British Empire through nonviolent civil disobedience. Gandhi led India to independence and inspired movements for civil rights and freedom across the world. How nice. All right, we ready?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Here's the quote. I am a monarch of God's creation, and you reptiles of the earth dare not oppose me. I render an account of my government to none, save God and Jesus Christ. This was either Napoleon, Washington, Pope Leo XIII, or Andrew Jackson. I am a monarch of God's creation. And you reptiles, I think there's a hint in there. You reptiles of the earth, dare not oppose me. I render an account for my government to none, except for God and Jesus Christ.
Interesting.
So this is someone that believed in Jesus. Was it Napoleon, Washington, Pope Leo XIII, or Andrew Jackson?
Well, you can X Pope Leo XIII off the list.
Why?
Right?
Because you don't think he believed in
Well,
Jesus?
he's Catholic.
Yeah, that's actually my guess.
Is that your guess?
Pope Leo,
I'm
yeah.
gonna
He was
say
the one that had the vision of
Yeah, I
the
know.
conversation
I'm
between Satan
joking.
and Jesus.
Washington.
It was Napoleon.
What?
Again.
I know.
Napoleon said that?
Napoleon eventually held the title Emperor of the French and simultaneously King of Italy before his military career ended. In the speech to a contingent of Catholic clergy in 1810, he was obviously still upset with the Catholic Church because a Romish priest excommunicated me, in quotes. So Napoleon had been excommunicated from the Catholic Church. And Napoleon was questioning his authority, saying, "But who gave him such a right to excommunicate me?" And Napoleon continues by rhetorically asking, "Do you think I am one formed to kiss the Pope's slipper? I think he had this one right. He understood he was accountable to God and Jesus, but not a fallible man, even if a pope." On this note, I wonder if anyone else finds it strange that our presidents kneel before the Queen of England and the Pope. Could I see, say, Vladimir Putin kneeling before our president and kissing his ring?
No way.
I mean,
No.
think about that. The leader of our country kneels before the Queen and the Pope.
I don't know why. I wouldn't.
Well, because they are lower ranking.
Well,
than-
obviously. But I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I'm just kind of shocked. You know, you learn about Napoleon a little bit
Right.
in
'cause-
school, but I never would have.
And we've got a completely different view of him
I never would have
than a
taken
man who
him
might
as
say
a
that.
ardent Christian.
There was a lot of Napoleon hardcore Christian. And it's funny, the guys that we have these negative views, because I always think Napoleon, ruthless dictator.
Yeah, he's just a murderous SOB, right?
Yeah.
J. Edgar
And
Hoover, cross-dressing freak.
Well,
John Todd, rapist. But at the end of the day, like, what's white is black and what's black is white. Like, I think we're going to find out a lot of people that we think are bad guys in prison are going to
not really that bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a little bit surprising to me that Napoleon,
Yeah,
because he actually was correct there with
Yep.
what he was saying. Basically, F you guys, you're nothing. Interesting.
Okay. This is still from the chapter Entering the Fight. Here's the quote. If enough people are ready to take this grave step, they will be successful. If not, then the intellectuals of this country deserve nothing better than the slavery which is intended for them. Noam Chomsky, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, or Albert Einstein.
What?
Malcolm X.
I'm going to say no.
Who's the one on that list that's the last one you'd guess?
With that quote, I don't know the last one.
Chomsky, MLK, Malcolm X, or Einstein?
Einstein.
Yeah, that's what I would have figured. It was Einstein. that
Einstein said
it.
that?
Yep.
Read that quote again just for Einie.
If enough people are ready to take this grave step, they will be successful. The grave step being essentially confronting the powers of darkness. He was very well aware of the Illuminati. If not, then the intellectuals of this country deserve nothing better than the slavery which is intended for them. Not was intended, is intended for them.
Old Al.
He's not dumb, people.
Gotta love it.
And that's not even, he says stuff that's harsher than that. All right. Moving on to the next chapter. So now we're entering the fight. We're going to uncover unfruitful deeds of darkness, yada, yada, yada. We need to learn about the enemy. The enemy of man. It's not the enemy of God. God will cream Satan. So will Jesus. That battle's been won. The battle that matters is Satan against man. That's the one we're in, where we're both the prize and the pawn of a spiritual war. What exactly motivates him, I'm not sure, but he basically wants your soul in hell. He does not want it in heaven or anywhere. Whatever your conception of heaven and hell are, I am not talking necessarily fire, brimstone, or maybe I am. I don't know. That's irrelevant. He wants you to himself forever. That's his goal. And he will lie. He'll do or say anything to get you to disqualify yourself from heaven. So, this is from the chapter called Hints About the Enemy. Now I know there's an enemy. There really is a conspiracy. These people really are organized. They really are coordinated. How are they doing this? What are they doing exactly? Well, how is this working? Like, I wanted to understand, how does this organization operate? It's like trying to research the mafia in the 1920s. No one knew about it. It was just a spoken thing. First quote. A power has risen up in the government greater than the people themselves, consisting of many and various powerful interests combined in one mass and held together by the cohesive power of the vast surplus in banks. Vice President John C. Calhoun, Vice President Spiro Agnew, President William H. Taft, or President Woodrow Wilson. A power has risen up in the government greater than the people themselves, consisting of many and various powerful interests, combined into one mass operation being run by the banks. Who said this? Calhoun, Agnew, Taft, Wilson. So it's either a vice president or a president. Howard?
Taft.
I was going to say the same thing, Taft.
It's John C. Calhoun. U.S. Vice President. This was in 1836. Although he's often remembered for his pro-slavery stance, he did enough to be named one of the 5 greatest U.S. senators of all time. The famous 5 U.S. Senate from 1959. Calhoun's statement above is another example of a high-ranking government official not so cryptically warning us about the banks. I think you guys know this one. If you've had it, just tell me. Here's the quote. This is Hints About the Enemy. So we're learning about how they operate. So we're starting to realize Their power comes from money. Here's the quote. Sarah, there's a government inside the government, and I don't control it. 1 point if you tell me who it was. 3 points if you tell me what question this person was answering.
What? Run that again.
It was Bill Clinton.
Here is, what are you, Skype? Are you, oh.
Yes, no, I'm on my phone.
Sarah, there's a government inside the government, and I don't control it. It was either Reagan, Carter, Clinton, or Obama. So it was a president that said this. There's a government inside the government, and I don't control it. So there's something more powerful than the president that he can't even touch.
Bill Clinton, and he was answering a question about... I can't take all the points.
Yeah, you can. Oh, or you don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I don't know either.
Well, who's your guess on who?
Yeah, it's Clinton, but I don't know what the question he was answering.
It was Clinton. The Sarah is Sarah McClendon, and she was following up with him on his promises to investigate Area 51 and the UFOs.
Right.
UFOs. Yeah.
As another in a long line of presidents talking about a secret government, this quote would have been included anyway. What makes this striking to those with open eyes was the question asked of him before he gave this answer. He was asked by senior White House reporter Sarah McClendon why he wasn't doing anything about UFO disclosure. Now think about that. He wanted to do it when a lot of presidents say, I'm going to get to the bottom of
Yeah, I
this.
think they all do when they're running.
And they're
Sooner
all
or later on
shut
one
down.
subject or another.
Who's shutting them?
Now
Now,
it never goes anywhere.
if
but
you
they
think the
all say
president's
that.
the most powerful person, I mean, in the world, forget that. In
Nah.
the United States, no.
Nah.
I mean, there's probably 50 people over the president. Those are the people that actually...
Yeah, they don't even create the words they say. I mean, they have speechwriters.
Right.
Okay.
So wait, did we get? What was the point
There
structure?
was Clinton. Each got one.
One. Okay.
Next quote. Hints about the enemy. Those who formally rule take their signals and commands not from the electorate as a body, but from a small group of men. This group will be called the establishment. It exists, even though that existence is stoutly denied. It is one of the secrets of the American social order. A second secret is the fact that the existence of the establishment, or the ruling class, is not supposed to be discussed. Now, we've often said before that the Illuminati have had many names, the 1%, the New World Order, the Synagogue of Satan, and one of their names is the establishment, the man.
The man.
So that should give you a rough idea of time frame. It was either playwright Arthur Miller, John Todd, Noam Chomsky, or Jim Morrison of the Doors.
What?
Those who formally rule take their signals and commands not from the electorate as a body, but from a small group of men. This group will be called the establishment. It exists, even though that existence is stoutly denied. It is one of the secrets of the American social order. The second secret is you're not supposed to talk about it. Arthur Miller, John Todd, Noam Chomsky, Jim Morrison.
It's a tough one.
Chomsky.
Yeah, that's my guess too. Chomsky.
It was playwright Arthur Miller. Whether Miller was best known for his timeless play Death of a Salesman or for his marriage to Marilyn Monroe is debatable. He went to the University of Michigan, graduate 1949, Pulitzer Prize winner for drama. You're married to Marilyn Monroe. You know there's stuff going on. You know stuff.
You know stuff.
You're somebody. All right, ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Yep.
David Rockefeller is the most conspicuous representative today of the ruling class, a multinational fraternity of men who shaped the global economy and managed the flow of its capital. Rockefeller was born to it, and he has made the most of it. But what some critics see as a vast international conspiracy, he considers a circumstance of life and just another day's work. This was either John Todd, Fritz Springmeier, Bill Moyers or Walter Cronkite? You guys know who all those people are?
Yeah.
Who's Moyers?
He's like a Mike Wallace kind of 60 Minutes
Okay.
type of journalist.
That's what I thought.
Sunday morning.
I'm going to go Moyers.
Yeah. Me too. Moyers.
Good guess. He's an American journalist. He was the White House press secretary. Broadcast journalist, public servant, and Baptist minister.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Elected to the Television Hall of Fame in 1995, recipient of the Lifetime Emmy Award in 2006. He won a bunch of awards. News, he said, is what people want to keep hidden, and everything else is publicity. With that statement, it seemed a logical step for Moyers and his wife Judith Davidson Moyers to create an independent production company, Public Affairs Television, in 1986. All right. Famous journalists telling us the same thing. Ready for the next one?
Mm-hmm.
From Hints About the Enemy. The word establishment is a general term for the power elite in international finance, business, the professions, and government, largely from the Northeast, who wield most of the power regardless of who it is in the White House. We were just talking about this. Most people are unaware of the existence of this legitimate mafia. Yet, the power of the establishment makes itself felt from the professor who seeks a foundation grant to the candidate for a cabinet post or a State Department job. It affects the nation's policies in almost every area. It's funny that whoever this is... Okay, ready? Here's your choices. It's either Patty Nixon, Edith Roosevelt, Jackie Onassis, or Mary Pinchot Meyer. Daughter of Nixon, daughter of Roosevelt, wife of Kennedy, girlfriend of Kennedy.
I say girlfriend.
And I take it back. It was Edith Roosevelt was married to Teddy Roosevelt, so she was the first lady.
Patty Nixon.
I guessed already.
You guessed who?
Kennedy's girlfriend.
Mary Pinchot Meyer?
Yeah.
It was Edith Roosevelt.
Oh.
My first
Married
choice.
to Teddy Roosevelt. So this was right around the year 1900.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
So flash forward to 1961 from when she was the first lady, because Roosevelt was in office through what? Like 19...
Teddy?
Yeah, 1908, 1904.
Something, yeah.
So flash forward 50-some years, nationally syndicated columnist Edith Kermit Roosevelt, the granddaughter... What? All right. I got to check that. Because here are my notes. The granddaughter of President Theodore Roosevelt gave her readers as sound a definition of this powerful clique as could be found anywhere. Her description made sense 55 years ago and is still on target today. The establishment, Edith Kermit Roosevelt, died in 2003. Now, so she was not Teddy Roosevelt. Okay, we'll have to fix that one. My apologies. All right, we ready?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's two more from Hints About the Enemy before we get into the money changers. Because now we figure out, okay, the power's coming from money. Right now we're just getting some hints about how they operate. Like, how global is this thing? Here's the quote. That is the devil getting at us. He always sends errors into the world in pairs of opposites. And he always encourages us to spend a lot of time thinking which is the worse. You see why, of course. He relies on your extra dislike of the one error to draw you gradually into the opposite one. But do not let us be fooled. We have to keep our eyes on the goal and go straight through between both errors. We have no other concern than that with either of them. This was either Pope Leo XIII, C.S. Lewis, Abraham Lincoln, or David Wilkerson?
C.S. Lewis.
That's my guess, too.
It was C.S. Lewis.
Nice.
Who was a diehard Christian. And Howard, I didn't even use the word Hegelian dialectic,
No.
You did
except
not.
to say that I did not use it.
There you
But
go.
that is the
You got it
Hegelian
in.
dialectic.
You got it in, though.
And think about this. If it works in pairs, and I go back to my business that we used to sell movies on eBay, and we started off with one, the name of my store on eBay was called White Elephant Media. And some people didn't like the shipping prices. So we were losing business. So I set up a second account called Media Amusement. Looked very different pricing structure. Shipping was free, but the actual DVD cost more, whereas White Elephant Media had a really cheap DVD, but shipping was really expensive. And we'd get people that would leave White Elephant Media, and they'd be like, you guys, your shipping is ridiculous. I'm buying from someone else. We set up the second account, Media Amusement, and then every now and then we get these people saying, I found a movie, I found the same movie for a better price. Customers saying that to my customer service people.
Right. They wanted
Not realizing that you bought the movie from me anyway. So if it was working for 2 accounts, we then kicked it up to 3. So we added Outpost Media. Then we would add a 4th account to the point where we were capturing, there were only 2 or 3 sellers that owned pretty much the entire eBay movie distribution space. And we were one of them because we had a bunch of, because no matter where you went, of the top 10 results when you run a search, it'd be different names, but it was, at the end, it was my company that was on 4 of those. So if you didn't like the color scheme in one or the shipping price in another, or one had the personal story, one had all different flavors, and I would have kept going. But we captured a lot of business, and people had no idea they were playing into this rigged game. If a human can figure this out, certainly Satan has.
Well,
And I think that's what we get on cable.
well, that's what we get every 4 years, isn't it?
Exactly.
A pair of errors, and we just
Yeah.
decide which one's
Yeah, exactly.
not the worst one.
Well,
Yeah.
television work, because there's 1,000 channels on cable.
Yeah.
You think you're safe. Every one of them is just a different part of the wrong path.
Except maybe TBN.
Yeah, look,
Maybe. Yeah.
it's not, God's at work too. But basically, you're not going to get your information off of a television set where they're deciding what it is that you look at. They're never going to show you the juicy stuff. All right, we've got time for...
At
we
least
got-
one.
we got time, right?
We're down to 5.
Oh.
Down to 4, actually.
I'll be really interested to see how you guys do on this one. This is from a chapter called The Money Changers. So now I've figured out this is all these things that are happening, 9/11, all these problems in the world. Every president, you've heard this now on this show from 1,000 people. The bankers, the finance guys, the bankers. So now I start to look into them. And at first, when I was coming across these things, they worship Lucifer, they practice Satanism, they interface with demons, I'm eye-rolling it, like I eye-rolled 9/11 10 years ago. But they were right. Here's the quote. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. This was either Nathan Rothschild, Alexander Hamilton, King Solomon, or Jesus Christ.
King Solomon.
Yeah, it was King Solomon.
Book of Proverbs. Good job, guys. 22:7.
Mhm.
I'm impressed. You guys got that one fast. The Money Changers. This one's tied to our show from a couple months back. 100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by interest on the federal debt. All individual income tax returns are gone before 1 nickel is spent on the services taxpayers expect from their government. Now, you guys remember this from our financial example.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll give you a clue. The quote was in 1984, and it was either by Ron Paul, economist Milton Friedman, Warren Buffett, or Peter Grace of the Grace Commission?
Read the quote one more time.
100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by interests on the federal debt. All individual income tax returns are gone before one nickel is spent on the services taxpayers expect from government.
Howard?
Choices again? Sorry.
Ron Paul, Milton Friedman, Warren Buffett, Peter Grace.
Milton Friedman.
Ron Paul.
It was J. Peter Grace of the Grace Commission.
Good choices, though, man. You did.
He's an American industrialist of Irish Catholic heritage. I think it was Reagan that put him on the Grace Commission because he was looking at some problems, if I remember correctly, with foundations.
Yeah, because Milton Friedman was what was his position in the Reagan administration?
I knew he was in the Reagan administration.
Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, we got one more.
Here's the quote. Hang on, let me make it real good. That one's two more?
Dang, generous.
The money change. Okay, two more. The money changers. I can assure you, gentlemen, that those who govern must count with new elements. We have to deal not with emperors and cabinets only. We must take into consideration secret societies who can disconcert all measures at the last moment, who have agents everywhere, determined men, encouraging assassinations, and capable of bringing about a massacre at any moment. This was either Harry S. Truman, President of the U.S., Benjamin Disraeli, Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Britain, or Woodrow Wilson, President of the U.S. This is either a president or a prime minister of a world power.
Disraeli.
Truman.
It was Disraeli.
Nice.
He said this in 1873.
What? That's what blows me away every time I hear these.
That's what I love is the
year.
ones that were just hundreds of years
1873.
Then you'll like this
They
one.
weren't just riding horses and, they knew what was up.
They did. It's all they did at the time was read the Bible and basically
Read
avoid the
stuff.
devil.
Yeah. Avoid the devil.
Okay,
What are you
here's the
doing
last
today?
quote.
I'm avoiding the devil.
I have been convinced that we, as an order, have come under the power of some very evil occult order profoundly versed in science, both occult and otherwise, though not infallible, their methods being black magic, that is to say, electromagnetic power, hypnotism, and powerful suggestion. I could go on, but I'm going to stop there. That's enough of the quote. This was either Freemason Bill Schnoebline, ex-Freemason George Morneau, Freemason Manly P. Hall, or Freemason Charles William Ferdinand, the Duke of Brunswick.
Who's the guy with the beard?
Schnoebline.
Back then, they all have beards.
Schnoebline. He knows what I'm talking about.
I'm going to say Hall.
Manly P. Hall. He was from the 1900s. This quote was actually from 1794.
Wow.
And it was from Charles William Ferdinand. He was the Duke of Brunswick. He was the Holy Roman, Prussian, German. He was statesman, military leader, and he was a Freemason. Now, this was a good guy who in 1794 is saying, guys, our little Freemasonic lodge here, it has been infiltrated by evil, like biblical evil. And we've got to get aware of, we've got to get on top of this.
Wow.
He ended up failing because Freemasons it's like an infection. Satanism entered Freemasonry, and it, like an infection, it grows. And they're poised to do what the Bible said, which is rain holy hell on this earth. Which always brings us to the reason we do this show, not to scare you. Maybe it is actually to scare you. Well, I take it back.
Here's something interesting. So, I just popped in my head. I don't know why, but oxygen was discovered just a little bit before that. Quote, like 1786 or something. They discovered oxygen was a thing, but these guys knew that already.
Well, the world had only been around for a little over 100 years at this point.
Well, the U.S., right? The world had been around for
No, the world
round
had been round.
Round.
The world was only known as an orb. It had only been 100 or a couple hundred years at this point.
Yeah. But they already kind of knew how this other stuff worked already. But they had just discovered oxygen was a thing. So it's just, to me, that's
all very interesting.
Satan is older than oxygen.
Oh,
yeah,
He's
well,
been
yeah.
at this for
It's
a
older
long
than
time.
Oxygen.
We do not do this show to talk about. We're not doing this for this morbid fascination with fear. Actually, I have no fear of this anymore.
No.
It's one of the
No.
nice things about getting good with God is you know that this will not have power over you, and I really do not get scared talking about this
No.
at all.
No, me too.
The
Or
reason
either.
we talk about it is because Satan is real, but don't focus on that. That also means Jesus Christ is real. It means the story that was in that Bible was true all along. And if you don't see that, it's because as of right now, you are a victim of Satan if you don't see that. And if you can't see that, you know what that means. That's not a good sign, people.
Nope.
This show is about trying to round up some people to have cocktails with us in heaven. And if you're listening, I hope you do what you got to do to get there. But start off by realizing and knowing who Jesus Christ was, what he came here for, and why.
Yep.
What you believe about that determines your eternal vacation spot.
And whether you get to participate in I Told You So Day or not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Chris has been nice, so we should wrap it up. This has been Down the Rabbit Hole. We will see you next week.